I'd like to take a moment to talk briefly about equality of opportunity. We are often told that America is the land of opportunity, and people from all over the world certainly do seem to go through a lot of trouble to come here. No one, however, thinks that opportunities are particularly evenly distributed. Being white, male, tall, college educated, English speaking, heterosexual, Christian from a wealthy background tends to expose an individual to a lot more opportunities than being black, female, short, homosexual, atheist from a poor family, and having only an approximate command of the English language. These sorts of inequalities endure, yet hardly any politician could run on a platform denying Americans an equal opportunity. Now, before trying to understand whether something terribly unjust is at work here in our society, we need to ask ourselves, what does it mean to have an equal opportunity? And what exactly do we have an equal opportunity for anyway? In this lecture, I examine at least three very different and very incompatible ideas of what people mean when they talk about what it means to have an equal opportunity. As you listen and read through this lecture, I'd like you to think about which one of these views is closest to your own. Your three options here are formal equality of opportunity, substantive equality of opportunity, and statistical equality of opportunity, which I think is closest to what people mean when they say they want to level the playing field. Let's start with formal equality of opportunity, or as Jerry Cohen would say, bourgeois equality of opportunity. I'm going to quote Arneson here, who says, "Formal equality of opportunity requires that positions and posts that confer superior advantages should be open to all applicants. Applications are assessed on their merits, and the applicant deemed most qualified according to the appropriate criteria is offered the positions." Now, what counts as positions and posts that confer superior advantages? Well, it's not entirely clear. One could imagine a couple different things. Certainly, political offices might qualify here, as well as even jobs of all sorts in the private sector. These are open to all equally because no one is going to be more entitled to any of these jobs than anyone else before applying for it. Or at least no one is more entitled to it based on characteristics irrelevant to the position. What this right to an equal opportunity does, right to a formal equality of opportunity does, is it confers a duty on those who possess or distribute these opportunities to grant them on the basis of merit or other appropriate criteria. Many people find that formal equality of opportunity still leaves a whole lot of inequalities that they're uncomfortable with. And so a second form, or second meaning of the term equal opportunity is sometimes called substantive equality of opportunity. Jerry Cohen calls it the left liberal equality of opportunity, presumably because it's most endorsed by people on the left. Arneson once again says, "One might hold that genuine or substantive equality of opportunity requires that all have a genuine opportunity to become qualified for these jobs and opportunities." So opportunities are equal here when we all have an opportunity to develop our talents so as to become qualified for any given position. So it's not that we need to have an equal opportunity to compete for a position. We have to have equal opportunity to become qualified to compete for a position. And this places duties on governments to, or not just governments, but society in general, to invest more resources in those whose background characteristics make them less able to develop their talents. So you could imagine that kids born in the inner cities, kids that go to bad schools, kids whose parents are poor or come from broken homes or don't have parents, that all of these children will be at a substantial disadvantage when competing equally, shall we say, or formally equally, for opportunities with kids from more privileged backgrounds. And so this would place a duty on individuals, civil society organizations, and ultimately the government to invest more resources in those students from more disadvantaged backgrounds. What this also does is it places duties on those people who have opportunities to distribute, that is to say employers and governments, to sometimes consider not just the demonstrated merit of candidates, but the opportunities these candidates had to get where they are. The debate about affirmative action can be very much seen through this lens, whereby those who support affirmative action tend to think that universities ought to take into account the disadvantages that people have, the advantages and the disadvantages that people have faced in their educational background up until college in assessing their merits for admission to schools and universities. There's one final conception of equality of opportunity, which I like to call statistical, although I think it comes pretty close to what Jerry Cohen calls socialist equality of opportunity. And again, following Arneson, this requires that unchosen inequalities should be eliminated and that inequalities that arise from the choices of individuals, given equal initial conditions and a fair framework for interaction, should not be eliminated or reduced. What does all this mean? It's kind of convoluted, but what I think Arneson is trying to get at here is that some people think we should go further than to give people a fair chance to compete, but you should also try to eliminate the role of luck and arbitrary factors in society completely, and that this would level the playing field, so to speak, so that everybody who wanted to access a position would have just about the same chance of achieving it. So individuals can't just have a fair opportunity to develop their talents, but the background inequalities that make them have different talents or different levels of talent should be ultimately eliminated. So resources shouldn't just be invested in people from disadvantaged social backgrounds, but individuals with various handicaps, learning disabilities, physical disabilities, and so on and so forth ought to have more resources invested in them. So, for example, on the substantive equality view, which is the left liberal view, the child from a poor family must have a fair opportunity to become competitive for positions that are attributed by merit. On the statistical view, the child from a poor family ultimately has to have the same statistical chance at getting a position attributed by merit. In other words, what it means to have a fair opportunity or an equal opportunity is to have exactly the same statistical chance of getting the job. Okay, so just let me sum up this lecture on equality of opportunity. We've got three standards here, and each has been more demanding than the last. The least demanding standard is formal equality of opportunity, or bourgeois economic equality of opportunity. This merely requires that employers not discriminate against people based on traits that are completely irrelevant to the job. So no racial discrimination in hiring, no hiring less qualified people over more qualified people because they happen to be the boss's son, and so on and so forth. On the slightly more demanding substantive equality of opportunity, every person must have a fair chance at competing for a position, which means that ultimately more educational and other resources must be invested in those from disadvantaged backgrounds. And finally, on the statistical equality of opportunity view, this view requires that so many resources be invested in those from disadvantaged backgrounds that they have not just a fair chance at competing, but an actually equal chance of winning that competition. So what that does is it demands a lot of resources to be invested in making equality of opportunity a genuine reality for all American citizens. Okay, so I'll part with the question we started with, which is which one of these most consonant with your view of what an equal opportunity should be.